Nobody expects their life to split in two at 35,000 feet. One version of you boards a plane, tired and visible, just trying to get home, and another version steps off, changed forever. That night, I was the first version, a quiet 18-year-old kid in a hoodie carrying a beat-up backpack thinking about nothing more than sleep and the leftover birthday cake waiting for me back home. By the time the plane touched down, I was someone else entirely. Someone who had learned exactly how fast people decide who you are and how ugly it can get when they think you don't belong. The flight was a late one out of Boston rain streaking down the windows, the cabin full of business travelers pretending not to eavesdrop on each other's phone calls. I boarded early, scanned my pass, took my seat up front. Seat 2A. Window. I liked the window because it made me feel less exposed. I wore loose sweatpants, an old college hoodie I'd stolen from my brother years ago, and sneakers with the soles almost worn through. Nothing about me screamed money power or importance, and that detail mattered more than I realized at the time. I settled in, pulled out my sketchbook, and started drawing the curve of the wing. Drawing always calmed me down. I'd just finished a brutal semester at an art program, the kind where critique feels personal and sleep feels optional. I was counting the minutes until I could crash in my own bed. That piece lasted about 10 minutes after takeoff. A sharp tap on my shoulder jolted me awake. Not gentle, not polite. I looked up to see the lead flight attendant standing over me, lips pressed tight, eyes already annoyed. "Ticket," she said. "Not? Can I see it?" "Not, please, just ticket." I blinked, confused, and reached for my phone. She cut me off. "I need a physical copy." I told her calmly that it was on the app, same as everyone else's. She sighed loudly like I'd personally ruined her night. People started watching. You can feel it when attention turns into judgment. The guy across the aisle paused his typing. The woman behind me leaned forward. The attendant scanned my phone, watched the screen flash green, and instead of apologizing, her expression hardened. "There's been a seating issue," she said, already lying. "You need to gather your things." I asked what issue. She ignored the question and pointed at my bag overhead. Said it was too big. It wasn't. Said it was a safety hazard. It wasn't. I told her this was my assigned seat. That's when her tone changed. "Don't get smart," she snapped. "I've been doing this longer than you've been alive." Someone muttered, "Just move like I was the problem for existing." My chest burned with that familiar mix of embarrassment and anger. The part of you that wants to disappear fights the part that wants to scream. I could have ended it right there. I could have said one name, made one call, but I didn't. I'd been raised to believe that character shows up when you don't reach for power first. So I stayed seated. I said calmly that I wasn't moving, and if there was a problem, it could be handled after landing. That's when she decided to make an example out of me. She announced a security concern loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Walked away. Came back with restraints. Actual plastic cuffs. I laughed at first, a short, shocked laugh, because it felt unreal. Then the male attendant she'd pulled from the back grabbed my wrist, hard. I pulled away instinctively, and she shouted that I was resisting. The word hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. They cuffed me in my seat. Tight. Too tight. Pain shot up my arms. Phones came out. Some people looked horrified. Most looked away. No one stood up. No one said, "Stop." They marched me down the aisle like a criminal, sat me on a jump seat near the galley, buckled me in, and told me I'd be charged with interfering with the flight crew if I didn't behave. I didn't cry. I focused on breathing, on not giving her the satisfaction. When I asked to make a call, she laughed and said no phones. I told her I was being detained and that I had the right to contact my family. The word detained made her pause. Bullies hate consequences. She finally allowed one call on the cabin phone, listening closely like she expected me to confess to something. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call a lawyer. I called a number I'd memorized since childhood. When the voice on the other end answered and I said the phrase we'd been taught never to use unless it was real, the air shifted. I watched her face drain of color as the operator's tone changed, as questions got serious, as names were repeated back to me. By the time the captain came out of the cockpit, things were already unraveling. He checked the manifest again, this time slowly, carefully. His shoulders dropped. He looked at me, then at her, then back at the paper in his hand like he wished it would say something else. He told her quietly to remove the restraints. She fumbled with the key hands, shaking, dropped it once, whispered that she'd made a mistake. I told her she hadn't made a mistake. She'd made a choice. The rest of the flight felt unreal. No announcements, no smiles. We landed at a remote gate instead of the terminal. Through the window, I saw black SUVs waiting security standing still like statues. When the door opened, the first person on wasn't my father. It was his chief of staff. Then the security team. Then him. He didn't rush. He didn't yell. He knelt in front of me and asked if I was okay. I held out my wrists. He looked at them for a long time. When he stood up, the warmth left his face. He asked the attendant to explain herself. She lied. Passengers corrected her, one by one. The truth piled up faster than she could outrun it. What came next felt less like revenge and more like gravity. Investigations, suspensions, arrests. It turned out I hadn't been her first target. I was just the one who stopped the pattern. Charges followed. Headlines followed. People argued online about whether it was too much, whether she deserved it, whether power had played a role. Maybe it had. But power hadn't put the cuffs on me, prejudice had. Months later, I saw her again by accident. Different uniform, fast food counter, head down, someone yelling at her for a wrong order. She looked up and recognized me instantly. Fear, shame, hope, all fighting on her face. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I realized in that moment that justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like walking away lighter than you were before. I tell this story because it's uncomfortable. Because it forces questions we don't like to ask about who gets believed, who gets restrained, and who gets protected. So here's my question for you. Was what happened to her justice, or did it go too far? And more importantly, how many stories like mine never end this way because no one steps in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with me. Agree with me. Share what you've seen. And if this made you feel something, stay with me because the next story goes even deeper.